Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Blood, Guts, and Thunder. The Olympics finished and World Cup qualifiers somehow only a month away. Barely had enough time to recover from our last show. Because there's just so much going on, want to have a bit more of an open discussion this week. So back by popular demand is our producer, James Sutherland. Welcome to the show, James.
Unpopular demand by the viewers, popular demand by the guy in charge, who is me, the producer. So yes, I am back by popular demand by at least one person.
He said he would do terrible things if I didn't let him back, so he's here. Um, what have you been up to, James, since your last
I've
appearance on the show?
not too much. As you know, and you and I have discussed many times, I'm one of the producers here locally in Vancouver for the NBA 2K League, so that's been keeping me busy quite a bit. And then outside of that, just watching a lot of soccer. I mean, surprisingly, we talked just before we went on air how fast the World Cup qualifiers were coming. It was crazy to think how much Canadian soccer was going on. Just a week ago we had, or a week and a half ago we had so much Gold Cup. We had Olympics, and then to factor in MLS teams announcing they're coming back to play in Canada. So yeah, it's just been a real whirlwind the last 2 or 3 weeks. So you can go back even further. Not too long ago in June, we were playing World Cup qualifiers for the men. So it's been a crazy summer for Canadian soccer.
Yeah, like in my young uh, watching soccer career, there's never been a time like this where there's just been Canadian soccer every month on the men's and the women's side, MLS going on, CPL going on. There's a bit of everything. I wanted to start obviously with the Olympics, which, yeah, they were incredible. Um, I don't think the expectations were really there for the women's team going into this tournament, uh, mostly owing to results from earlier, just before, in friendlies against similarly matched teams. And they went and proved everyone wrong. They proved me wrong, and they won the gold, and it was a real sight to see. I guess I just wanted to go back to the gold medal game in particular against Sweden. I guess for me, waking up before like 10 a.m. is a big deal. I guess as a teenager, it's not something I'm really built for yet.
I spent
Um,
several years waking up for a 5 a.m. shift, so waking up early
yeah,
for a sporting event's a nice change. As we talked about before, at one point off air, I'm a big Spangler Cup fan. I love the Spangler Cup. So when that
right.
final's on every year at 3 o'clock West Coast time, I'm up there watching the game. So it took me a few minutes to get up for this gold medal game. It's been a few years since I've had to really get up that early, but I was up and I watched the game, and it was tiring. I got a shot of adrenaline as soon as we went to PKs. Yeah, it was crazy.
I might do it again. Like I don't know. I mean, it's nice waking up at 1 p.m., but something about that morning air, it complements soccer games well. Maybe I'll do it just for fun. Um, this is, I think, going to have pretty massive impact. It's obviously had one on Canadian sports media, and I expect it to have a large impact on Canadian soccer as well. What sort of impact do you think it's going to have?
Well, I think the women's program has probably had the most impact in Canadian soccer the last decade. I think
Sure.
they've seen the most exponential growth, at grassroots levels, which is more like, I guess, local when you think about it, national level. And I think this women's national team has probably, I mean, if someone can feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they've grown to be the stronger, more dominant team. And I think even when they weren't winning gold medals before and they were competing hard at every Olympics, at every World Cup they played in, I think the expectation was that they're going to win something, and now whether that was just winning, win a knockout round, and we'll be satisfied as Canadian soccer fans. Okay, we got to a medal game, medal or not, we'll be satisfied. I think the standard even now now that they won the gold is like, okay, now we are going to compete from now on, and we have that belief even more so now. So yeah, it's crazy how much this women's team has grown already, and then even more so, they were talking about on the broadcast how Grosso and Haidama and a few other players were probably watching that 2012 game when we got screwed by the referee against the Americans. That's not a hot take. That's just fact. And even
Yeah,
retired women's players have been
I
saying
remember
that.
that.
So don't at me about that one. But I think we're going to see an explosion of young, like not just female soccer players, but young soccer players in Canada who are affected by this win go, because you're going to see girls like, I want to be on that team, and you're going to see young kids or young boys, to just say, who will be like, oh, like why doesn't our men's team qualify for the Olympics? I want to be on the men's side of that now too. So we're going to see a huge exponential growth in for both boys and girls soccer here in Canada, and then even those who are on the cusp of making the team now in terms of their age, they're going to have even more motivation to make it as well because this is a winning. We've proven 3 medals in a row at the Olympics. Great comp. I probably have underperformed in World Cups. Maybe that's a hot take, I would say, but we are always considered a strong team. So I think we're going to see it's going to be unprecedented how strong this is going to help grow the youth game.
I guess moving on to the team itself, who stood out to you in particular in this tournament?
As often, I'm going to give you a very generic and boring answer. It was Labe, the keeper. She was, there was a couple goals in the qualifying round. Not that they let many in, but there was a couple. I'm trying to think which game was it against Great Britain. I know it took a deflection, but it sort of was a bit of a suspect. She was sort of caught going one way, maybe let that one slide. But there's a couple where it's like, okay, is that just unlucky? Is that just bad defense? Hard to say. But she obviously the PKs in the gold medal game. She's a superstar. I know we had to score goals to get there too, but without her there, we're not stopping any of those. Some bad PKs by Sweden too. I digress. She was the most standout player of the whole tournament. And you can make other honorable mentions, but even if we just consider the gold medal game, she was the most standout player out of everybody. And it's great to see that we have such a watching her. She's such an energetic, literally in your face of the Swedish players, like goalkeeper, and it's great. She's a great personality. I haven't seen too many interviews with her for on television. You might be able to have seen more than me, but she's a great personality to have for the game in general. And I think she was the best player we had.
I was really impressed with our defensive performance. I loved the efforts of our fullbacks. I thought Alicia Chapman was really good. I was impressed all around. Do you think sort of these defensive tactics, this ability to grind other teams down and force them into these difficult situations, do you think that's sort of going to be the face of this women's team going forward?
I mean, whether we want it to be or not, whether it's exciting for people, I remember reading some of the Reddit threads during the match against Canada-USA, how they're like, oh, Canada, they didn't deserve to win, blah, blah. It's like, but they found a way to win, and they found a way to be successful. Yeah. So I think regardless of whether we want this tactic or not, and whether it's exciting soccer or football, it's what we're going to go with because we just won the gold medal with it, so why change it?
Yeah, I think it's similar to what we see in hockey sometimes, no one really likes the New York Islanders, but they're good at what they do, and they've done it a few years in a row. I think that's what this Canadian team is doing as well. Maybe it's not as flashy a one as teams we've seen in the past. That's sort of what the men's side pride themselves on, their flashiness. But if it gets results, that's what's most important, obviously.
If any sports team I cheered for, as much as I like to see, a hard-fought game, a good sport. But if they win, what do I care how they won? That's sort of as much as I'm a Montreal Canadiens fan, not to digress into hockey too much. Ew. I'm Montreal. That's okay. Hey, man, it was 3-1. Don't you forget that. They were, people, Montreal fans are complaining about Tampa Bay being $18 million over the salary cap. That's maybe a little different, but they found a way to win and they won. And so why if Montreal did the exact same thing and they had players who are 18 over, but they somehow won, why would I care? They won the trophy. If you find something that works and you're not being stopped, keep doing it. And I'm not saying you got to go out and cheat like other teams, like the Americans women's team who like to cheat. But hey, that's just my opinion.
I mean, we have our own ways. There's this funny video from 10 years ago where Christine St. Clair is talking with the American captain. And the American captain is just taking little shots at the Canadian team for their defensive style of play, for just steamrolling other teams. It's funny, but I guess it's sort of what we do. And I guess to move on to Christine St. Clair, speaking of cliche players who did well in this tournament.
Yes.
It's such a perfect story, I guess, nearing the end of her career, that she was able to pull this off, that she was able to get this gold medal. Do you think this puts her down as maybe one of the greatest Canadian athletes of all time? Because I don't know, there's a lot. I remember I've gone to the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame in Calgary, and there's a lot dedicated to her. But there's this one thing missing. There's always been this one thing missing, that she's never won that gold medal, and she has that now. Do you think this qualifies her at this point?
I would say absolutely this has to, because like you said, if she already wasn't considered to be one of the best Canadian athletes of all time, which she was, but I think if she already wasn't in that tier before, she's exceeded that more so. And like
Yeah,
she may not
definitely.
have, she obviously drew the penalty in the gold medal game. To me, she didn't have like a standout amazing moment in that gold medal game, but I think that's shows how great of a player she is. Like she obviously stood out, made great plays, but she wasn't like, oh, she didn't, bang one in, post it in, like crossbar down, like all these things. No, she's an amazing player. She has been for decades at this point, and I think she still has a lot in her. And I think now that she has a gold medal to her name, even though like she got subbed out in the 86th, which maybe as a casual fan would say, like, oh, aren't you going to leave your best player on? It's like that just shows like, no, she was your best player for 86 minutes, or one of your best players for 86 minutes, and now it's like a sign. Okay, now the players who are going to get us to the finish line, she just, it's a great metaphor for the whole thing. She took us this far, and now the next generation of players are going to finish it for us. We're going to keep going. And yeah, she's already one of the best Canadian athletes of all time, not just Canadian soccer players of all time. She's just one of the best athletes. Give her a billboard somewhere, build a statue all across Canada in each building she's played at or something like that. And I hope and I think she has a lot more to give still.
I definitely undersold her in that question because she's undoubtedly one of the best Canadian athletes of all time. Yeah, maybe it's a question of where to rank her more than anything. Um, there was a fantastic interview after the woman won the gold medal with on CBC. Maybe you saw it with Christine Sinclair and Steph LeBay. Um, and yeah, one of the questions was about what LeBay did in the penalty shootouts, which to me was my favorite part of the game, where she would walk right up to the penalty spot and just give this haunting smile to the Swedish players before they shot. I don't know, just that in the face of adversity, in the face of maybe never having a chance to be in this gold medal position again. It was inspiring. It was
It's one of those
it was my
situations
favorite part of
where,
the Olympics.
oh, it was amazing. It's one of those situations where if it works against, if she didn't stop any and she kept doing that, like if it again, we just talked about if it works, why stop? Clearly she was in their head. She was all, and she wasn't even doing anything. She was just standing there smiling. She's right within her rights to stand there until she's told to get on the line. She's doing everything she's allowed to do. I've seen some keepers, like, I mean, obviously mostly in Premier League or Euros, things like that. We've seen keepers like Joe Hart full on just get in someone's face and it work against them. But I think it was just like the perfect amount of shithousery, but while also still following the rules. Like she was there, she was allowed to be there. She was smiling. She's not doing anything, but that's like such like a little bratty little kid thing to do. And I think it was great. I think it was a great, again, a great personality to have, not just in women's soccer but in sports. Because I feel like there's so many boring athletes out there. One of my biggest gripes in hockey broadcasts, again, not to go back to hockey, but we're Canadian, so we're always going to find a way to go back. I find
Boring.
that player interviews for hockey, get rid of all of them. Post game, pre game, intergame, so boring. And let's focus on the on ice personality. Let's mic them up or something like that. Imagine there's a mic on Labe in the PKs or something like that. We just listen to her audio. I know she's not saying much, but it'd be hilarious because she's laughing, she's smiling, she's screaming the whole time. I put her PK save in the Allgrave Cup in their intro video because she just like exuberates so much energy. So yeah, that was a highlight of the tournament for me as well. But I hope we keep doing that and keep that persona going for the Canadian team. Is just like, I see what you're doing and I'm gonna stop you.
In the interview, though, she denied it. She said she was just happy to be there. Was this really like psychological warfare, or
Maybe
like
she
is she
maybe she
bringing
is
is she
this
trying to bring a bit of CONCACAF to the international level?
maybe she is that innocent. It's like, oh no, I was just there. And again, that's what I was saying. She's following the rules. The referee's not telling her to move. She's moving when she's told to. She's staying on her line. She didn't. I'm sure the Swedish players were probably at some point pointing that, she's moving too much on her line or something like that. But no, if she is that innocent, great, because let's keep that going. If she's not, even better.
Another thing brought up in that interview, and something probably a bit more important, was sort of the state of the women's game in Canada. Um, so we just saw Josie Alidor tweet recently that there could be an NWSL team coming to Toronto, and I think that sort of sparked a bigger debate about what women's soccer should look like in Canada. And that's going to be between, the MLS system where we sort of infiltrate American leagues with two or three Canadian teams, or I guess the CPL route where we just try to go on our own. For me, it's a really difficult question because, maybe you have a chance at a higher level on one hand, but on the other hand, you have more control over your domestic league. I think one of them is going to happen. I'm not sure which. Which do you think is the best route to go?
I think that's like, so morally, I think we all want just a Canadian. Oh no, it's not just, but we want a Canadian. We want our own Canadian Women's League to show that we
For
can
sure.
grow the game. We can have the markets to do so. But I just don't think we have the markets to support even. Sometimes CPL is really, they're getting good numbers right now for attendance now they're back home, but that was just because they were starved without a season for so long. Over a prolonged time, it's like my argument here in Vancouver about the NBA. People are so sure that this city can sustain an NBA team. And I'm in the other camp of people who are like, yeah, because we have one NBA game here a year, and it's an exhibition for the Toronto Raptors. And yes, you sell out
You
instantly.
had your
'Cause,
chance.
yeah, well, no, exactly. Vancouver does not. This is a soccer show. We've already talked about hockey. I'll bring up the NBA. Vancouver does not deserve an NBA team at all. But that's a fear for when it comes to, if you have these sort of small, we're deemed as smaller markets. If you can guarantee that you've done the research, that you can guarantee fans will be there and pay to be there for a Canadian Women's League, I'm all behind it. Absolutely. If someone proves me wrong, they're like, no, Saskatoon, Victoria, even if they're adjacent to the already existing CPL teams, we have, just like the Premier League and a bunch of other leagues in Europe, we have, the Pacific FC Women's, we have FC Edmonton Women's team. If they actually wanted to support it, I am all for it, but I just believe the best route is probably NWSL, just because there is the dollars behind it, the infrastructure behind it, and I think maybe it'll incentivize more people to play, and you'll get more players coming here. So, in my heart, I want a Canadian league, but I think the smart thing to do is to probably, if we're going to start a league, is to join the NWSL. So,
Yeah, like it's a difficult answer to give, but I mean, there's another problem. Like maybe we wouldn't even have the CPL if the MLS hadn't created that interest in Canadian soccer, and like that's just something you have to consider. I think.
no,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, I don't know. I completely agree. By the way, like you need, um, like yeah, I agree. Like in your heart, you want that Canadian domestic league. Um, you want us to have control over our own players. Like it sounds really good, but yeah, you need that financial support. You need to look at the reality of it.
Absolutely.
But even if we do have that NWSL team, um, I guess Sinclair and LeBay were sort of concerned about the culture of Canadian soccer right now. That I guess soccer games aren't really shown in bars, or at least domestic soccer games aren't shown in bars. Um, Sometimes the media isn't as interested in covering it. That's why we have the show. Um, like, how do you think we can promote that culture that will create an environment where fans are going to be interested in the women's league and increasingly interested in our other domestic teams here in Canada?
Yeah, yeah. I think the debate that I always see on Twitter when it comes to One Soccer is people being like, oh, this should be on cable, this should be on TSN, this should be on CBC. You know what? Maybe they're not wrong, but I find that such like a old. This isn't 2004 anymore where everything's going to be on cable. I think it's a pretty uneducated thing to say that all these games should be on television. It's like, first of all, you don't realize the cost, how much it is to put on television. If you don't have the sponsors behind it, you definitely can't get the airtime. And if the networks aren't interested, like as far as we know, there's a narrative being spun that TSN and Sportsnet were not interested in purchasing the rights to Canadian soccer. But then there's also the other flip side of people saying, well, Media Pro only wanted to be on One Soccer. Anyway, I won't go too far into that deep dive of cable or not. But I think to establish the interesting, not just women's soccer in this country, but Canadian soccer in general in this country, to be more mainstream, is we have to win. You have to win something. And I think that's a lot of people. Another argument people say about the men's team is that, like, to get this country interested, we have to make the World Cup. As exciting as these games are going to be for all of us already established to be cheering on Canada for the World Cup qualification, the broad spectrum doesn't care until we make the world. Or there's a game. Okay, this game, if they win, they will go to the World Cup. Then someone will be interested in it. And the same goes for the women's game. I think now that they've won the gold medal, people who already followed the team knew this and we're excited for this and we're pumped for this. But now that we've won the gold medal, not only on a global stage have we sort of piqued the interest, but I think even now more so in Canada, back to when we were talking about the impact this will have on Canadian soccer locally. Okay, we've won a gold medal. We've established ourselves as a power. We beat the U.S. on the way to win the gold medal. I think that'll generate more interest. But the accessibility of media, like yes, we can't watch games in bars, but we've seen, the Voyagers do a great job of organizing. Okay, there's this bar in Vancouver or Calgary, Edmonton. You can go and you can watch the game. I think it takes on the fans too, who do care, is to try and go like, there might be a bar here is that won't show a Canada World Cup game, but I'm like someone who has a one soccer account. I'm gonna go to that bar and go, what can I do to get this game just in the in the back room on, so we can tell the local Canadian soccer fans, hey, if you want to watch the game, go to this bar. It takes a lot on the team side. They've done their job. They've won. They've done what they do. Now as a fan side, we got to also help promote it as well and go like, let's watch the game here.
I definitely agree that those hot takes about, why isn't this game on cable that you always see on Twitter. By the way, it's really weird how those messages just generate and generate. It's almost like sponsored.
It's so weird.
Really
And I
strange.
can guarantee it every time Canada Soccer posts something on Twitter or on Facebook. I do this to myself. I shouldn't. I look at the comment section, and it's just like, be like, oh great, too bad I can't watch it. It's like, well, you can watch it. You just gotta subscribe. It's not my fault or Canada Soccer's fault that you're computer illiterate. It's not just a generational thing. It'd be easy to say, well, it's all old people who can't figure out subscriptions, but it's like, no, if you can log onto your computer, you can, it's like anything, just watch One Soccer. And you know what, I'll give One Soccer a little bit of criticism here, is that as far as I know, they don't have a proper app, so you can't just watch it, say something like a Netflix or an Amazon Prime app. You can't just like click on it and watch the game. They deserve that fair criticism, I think, too. But it's so easy to access. I don't understand people who can't do it. They don't understand that cable's also not the cheap alternative either.
And I'll be even more reasonable to those criticisms because you know what, I'm at this point I'm almost unsure if One Soccer is the right platform to do it because when they were covering the bubble tournament in
Oh,
Winnipeg.
looks like I lost your microphone there, Kieran.
Do you hear me? Do you hear me?
I tell you what, let's go to a commercial break and we'll come back and we'll check this out. So we'll be right back, everybody.
Feel the crackling, steam escaping from your taste buds, burning and yearning in anticipation of hard work paying off. A craft earned and perfected, hands that give glimpses of guarded family secrets. Taste the air, you dance with the flames. A moth drawn to the lights. The sights attack your eyes like a morning sun, rising, lifting. Your soul has awakened.
All right, sorry about that, everyone. We're back, and I have a wonderful tangent on One Soccer I've been planning several seconds while I was gone.
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to be really reasonable to these angry people on Twitter, and I'm going to say, like, there is a lot of legitimate criticism of One Soccer to the point where I'm not even entirely sure that it's if there is going to be a streaming platform, I'm not sure it's the right one going forward because like the levels of unprofessional broadcasting I saw at the Winnipeg bubble where as the game is going on in the virtual stadium they're moving their virtual stadium seats back and forth like while the game is going on.
That virtual stadium is the absolute I know there's as someone who works in sports broadcasting and someone who works, I understand the need for sponsors. I know there's probably money owed to sponsors. They have to do that stuff. It's absolutely terrible to see on like to watch at any broadcast at any level. I've seen even for a while when the MLS had the Canadian teams playing 3 or 4 games in a row. Back at home before they started playing the States again, they had a virtual sort of stadium going or like signs going. And it just looks terrible. Long story short, it looks bad. Don't ever do it again.
Yeah, and I don't know. Just with I'm yet to find a commentator I really liked at One Soccer. I'm um, I'm yet to be impressed with coverage before the game, and like it just really concerns me that this is going to be the way going forward. It's not that it's not cable because as we see in Europe, that's it's not always the answer. You can have streaming platforms that do their job to promote the game.
Yeah.
But like it needs to get a lot more professional. It needs to get a lot better.
And
Really quick.
that's an interesting thing you bring up though when you just when you're talking about cable in Europe. As someone, I didn't realize until, a couple of years ago when I was visiting that you couldn't just watch your team play on TV whenever you wanted. Yeah. And I don't think people, realize the sort of TV deals that go on in other countries. Like people can complain about One Soccer all they want about how the games are on CBC and TSN or Sportsnet. Sure, you could have probably a valued argument somewhere. But then look no further than the UK to see how the Premier League, which is considered one of the best, leagues in the world, and if you're a fan of anyone but Manchester City, United, Tottenham, you might not get to watch your team on a regular basis on television. You have to find a different way to watch it. And that other way is pirating streams. And that's lost revenue for the Premier League. And I have no problem taking the Premier League money. I don't want to pay for BT Sport or all that stuff or, Sky Sports. And then also to go to that point, you have to watch the Premier games on DAZN or DAZN or whatever you want to call it. I always get the name mixed up. So you have to pay for a streaming service to watch Premier League games and then a bunch of other sort of leagues they have on there too. So why can't you pay to watch on One Soccer? I understand the app discussion, as I mentioned before, how it's true, One Soccer does not have an app like DAZN. I hope I said it right. They don't have a great app on your TV to do that. They should fix that. They absolutely need to look at that. But other than that, like, what's the difference? I don't understand.
And I mean, it's not unique to One Soccer. During the Gold Cup, I was watching the Fox Sports coverage of nearly every game, and I saw a lot of things. But my favorite was the commentators referring to the Trinidad players as Trinitarians for like the entire game.
Yes.
No one corrected him. He just kept doing it. I saw it on Paramount too, so I'm starting to think it's like, I don't know, contagious. But yeah. I guess after that smooth transition, let's talk a bit about the Mexico game with the Gold Cup. We talked to Dion Brunings last time on the show, and that was just before the Mexico game. So we've actually never gone to talk about it, so I'm really excited. So how would you rate our performance in that game? People were generally positive about it. What did we do? What did we do so well?
Yeah, it's so hard to give a great analysis of a game like that because it's people will say, well, Mexico didn't have their best players either. It's like, yeah, but Mexico's still pretty good. They're missing a few key guys. Let's not. And even if they had a team, and then they still had a team in the Olympics, it's like, well, how many of those guys are going to be on the senior squad for the Mexico Gold Cup?
The conversation, I guess. I don't know. I like stalking. I like stalking the opponent's fans, and the conversation dramatically shifted in Mexico from we're gonna beat them 6-0 to well, we didn't have our best players either.
Absolutely. Like, I had no problem from my own account, from the BGT account. I have no problem saying before when all those Suriname fans were getting in our face about how I've even heard of the whatever division they have in the Netherlands. They're trying to give us a hard time about how we have players from Europe on our team. Yeah, well, so do we. What does that matter? I don't. So I have no problem giving it back to Mexican fans. It's like I actually inherently as Canadians we have a great rival of the U.S. and I always consider the U.S. our biggest rival in CONCACAF. That is done and over with since this game. I now consider Mexico. Yeah. Maybe I should have thought this all along, but I consider Mexico and their fans enemy number one. Now, granted, there were a number of fans who were like, "Wow, I was impressed by Canada. That game was a lot closer than I expected." looking forward to more games with full squads. There is plenty of people who I should give credit to that were gracious in victory, but yes, there was a large amount, regardless of those racist idiots who were going after players on our team at the stadium and online, but people who were just didn't know how to win properly. Oh, we didn't have our best players. I think Mexico missing a few of their best players and Canada missing a few of their best players are two much different teams. We essentially had, with injuries and suspensions, a B- team. It was still a very strong team, but given, but it's
we had Tesho Akindelli.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So we still had a strong team. I felt we could compete with most teams in that tournament, even with that starting lineup. But it's just we could go on and on about these fans of any team. I'm sure if we'd won a game like that, we'd have a lot of jerks to try and those aren't real Canadian soccer fans. But for now, because we lost, I would rate the performance against Mexico, because it's still Mexico with a weaker team. Both are weaker teams, so let's just say, still a very strong game in Canada. I was ecstatic when it was 1-1, because I was just like, that's sort of like the Gold Cup game a few years ago where Canada brought to within one. It's like, oh, this is a game now. This is a game within reach, and we can get a result from this. Even if we got to extra time, the same thing happened. This shows like, no, we can take CONCACAF's best to all the way to extra time. It's too bad we lost. I'm glad that some Mexican players got a few knuckle sandwiches from the Canadian players. They fucked about and they found out. We lost, so they can always have that. But yeah, I think it was a great, strong game for Canadian squad. I think it boosts our morale playing in Mexico. I think next time it's like, when we go to Azteca, when they have 0 fans because they are chanting racist and homophobic crap in the crowd, because they will have no fans at Azteca when we go down there. And I don't know if that's confirmed, but that looks like that's going to happen. I'm really looking forward to the next match, because I think we can take some points off them. Now, I may eat my words plenty just after this, but I'm looking forward to playing Mexico again, because that was just like, great. Mexico was supposed to win. They won. Close game. I'm proud of the Canadians. We did a great job. Probably shouldn't have lost to Mexico that game based on how we played. But, I can't wait for the next one.
I might have to hold you to something here. When going by our rivalries, there's a certain insecure smugness in every American fan that for me still takes the cake. I remember when they beat us 4-1, they wouldn't let us hear the end of Jordan Morris beating Alphonso Davies. We beat your Alphonso Davies team with our MLS team without Pulisic.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, the U.S. still takes the cake. There's a segment of the Mexican fan base which probably gets to awful levels that the American fan base doesn't get to. But I don't know. There's a level the U.S. hasn't reached yet that most of them, they all seem to think they have.
Yeah.
And just that endless bragging. I don't know. It gets worse than the Mexican fans.
Yeah, it's when it comes to certain. I know it's not all American fans, because there are, just like with Mexican fans, there are some American fans who are happy just to be where they are, something like that. But yeah, even in stadium, you can feel it when you're watching the game. They have this strange smugness about them. Like, as soon as it's 1-0, every goal is just like, this is like a guaranteed win now for the Americans. And to their credit, they've actually made World Cups. It was a disappointment when they missed the last World Cup, and they've won Nations League since then. They've won a Gold Cup for sure. Did they win 2017 they won, or 2019 the Americans? Or was that back-to-back Mexico for Gold Cup? So when it's just two teams that win trophies in our region, it's actually harder to keep track of, because it's just like, okay, well, it was either Mexico or USA, so I don't really remember. Regardless, you were correct that there is a strange smugness about a lot of American fans, but I think just after what I saw from a large amount, or maybe at least the ones I saw from Mexican fans, and how their players reacted as well, they didn't act any better than their fans during that game. I've now moved Mexico on top of my rivalry list in CONCACAF. It was Haiti for a while, because Haiti took us out. We had about 19 games against Haiti in a 4-week span. 19 or 20 games against Haiti. That's what it felt like anyway. And then they were top, and then we sort of put that to bed finally. U.S. match, again, we always have that inherent rivalry with them, but for whatever reason, since that semifinal game against Mexico, I was like, no. USA, you're backseat now. I want Mexico. I don't care if we only draw them at Azteca. That will feel like a win.
Now we have a higher class of bitter, petty rivalry.
I will always be bitter, and I will always be petty.
Um, yeah, just one more note on this. Like, I don't want to take credit away from this American team. If I were American fans, I think I would find the team itself really likable.
Absolutely.
Um, but like I guess the thing I would point to was when they lost to Switzerland barely. They had this friendly game against Switzerland. I thought they played really well in the first half. They barely lost, and like the Twitter's getting flooded with Berhalter out, Berhalter out. And I don't know. I just think that smugness, that level they think they're on, where um, losing to a pretty decent team in Europe, a team that beat France at Euros, warrants that kind of discussion. I don't know. I don't like it. Um,
Yeah, it's a bit much.
um, I guess I want to move on to the individual performances in that Mexico game. Obviously, you have to start at Tejan Buchanan, who he was just incredible in that game, weaving his way in and out, um, getting into the box in magical, mystical ways. Like, just how good was he in that game?
He was good the whole tournament, and he showed up most for that. Not that he didn't show up before, but he just really showed what he's capable of. Um, in that Mexico match, it's crazy to think that they haven't really settled on a deal yet for him to go to Europe. I guess not New York,
It looks like he
New
will
England
go
Revolution.
through,
Yeah,
or
okay,
however
so
you say it.
but I think it's Bruges. But hey, again,
Bruges.
I could be wrong. I probably got that wrong. But
No,
yeah,
I think
I think yeah, it's crazy how fast he's just I always sort of knew about his existence, never really paid that much attention to him, and then his coming out party was the Olympic qualifiers where he peaked game one, kind of dipped a little bit, but his skill, his flash was always there, and you still saw that in the Gold Cup where there was moments where he wasn't always beating guys, but you could see that flash was still there, and that flash was there the entire Mexico game. I don't know if he gets the starting role if for our World Cup qualifiers. I'm not sure if he's in the starting 11. It's tough. I would love to see. I would love to see him starting 11, but it's sort of whether it's rotation or experience they want to go with or blah blah blah. He's on that squad no matter what. Now he's cemented himself as a permanent. I think there's no way you can remove other than injury or
yeah, he's
what
going to be
have you.
star going forward. No question.
There's absolutely no reason he should not be on the team, guaranteed like substitution at least like super sub Tejan Buchanan or something like that. But yeah, I think just like we had with Alfonso Davies in 2017, that was his big coming out party. 2021 was Tejan's big coming out party, and I looking forward to I think we have a great surprisingly pipeline of young Canadian players who are super pacey and have great feet, and they can also shoot, they can also pass. We've seen a lot of talent throughout the years who can do one or the other, and I think we've had guys now like Davies, and Buchanan who are these guys can move and they can move the ball themselves, and it's great to see. It's amazing.
We saw Max Crepeau stop a penalty in that game. He had a fantastic tournament all around. I mentioned in my conversation with Alex Gagne-Ruzic that you feel a lot more comfortable with Crepeau in net, that he's not going to bobble it. He's not going to do a classic Borjan blunder. And yeah, as Alex said, it's hard to imagine he ever wins that starting spot with the level Borjan is playing at in Champions League or Europa League almost every season. But I don't know, if you were manager, regardless of what's actually going to happen, if you were the manager, would you give him that starting spot?
No, I would stick with I think Crepeau played amazing. They're also two very different keepers. To almost equate it to hockey, just in terms of personality. It's just an easier reference because we're Canadians. It's just easier to reference hockey. Yes, Borjan is a lot like Tim Thomas, where he's unorthodox. He kind of just does what he wants. Not great handler with the ball. Never really sure what he's going to do. Makes routine saves look amazing. Makes amazingly saves look routine. But he's gotten to that stage. He's played on that level. He's played against some of the best teams in Europe, regardless of what you think about the Serbian league. Some European snobs may think that's not a very great league, and maybe they're right. But he's played in some intense, hostile stadiums. And he's played against some of the best teams in Europe in Champions League. So, regardless of what you think he's done on, I've seen firsthand his blunder against French Guiana in the CONCACAF Nations League in Vancouver, when he just sort of kicked it to nobody and it was in the back of our net. And then we all saw against Bermuda, we saw against Haiti a few years ago. He's always guaranteed one blunder every two games, but it's hard to argue with his resume not just with Canada, because he's one of the longest serving players and veterans and like captain of the team. You have to at least start with him, and then if after the first window it's like kind of evident like, oh, we were playing great, but it was clear that Borjan's mistakes were the reason why we lost those games. That's when you start having the discussion of like, let's get Crépeau in some matches. Let's, I'm assuming they're going to want to rotate keepers, because I know they can play 3 matches in 10 days, but it's probably not wise. You might want to put Crépeau against Honduras or El Salvador. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not a manager, so I'm not sure what you'd do in that situation. But yeah, long story short, always go with Borjan first until it's proven that's just not working. You have to. Crépeau's amazing. He will be our next keeper for sure if he keeps up this form. But I think for now you go with the guy who's been there, relatively speaking. Because what's the biggest game? I know this is probably Crépeau's biggest game he's ever played in. But prior to that, what is Crépeau's resume other than MLS?
That's true.
It's an unfortunate fact, but that's just what I think of it. And I think how a lot of people probably think, at least when it comes to fans.
It's just, I never thought I would say this, but I think I don't know if I would do it yet, but it's a lot closer than I thought it was.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like, as we speak right now, Borjan's team, Red Star Belgrade, they're tied 0-0 with Sheriff from Moldova. The first leg was a 1-1 draw. So if this ends in a 0-0 draw, they're going to be eliminated in the Champions League qualifiers by a team from Moldova. I don't know. That's not nothing.
Yeah. Well, you gotta score goals though.
That's true, but I don't know. I don't know what level Red Star is on at this point. Like they had a pretty good Europa League last time around. Was it Milan that they came really close to beating?
Yeah, they got pretty close, and this couldn't, for just in terms of quality, this couldn't get over the line. That's fair in a match like that.
But if the idea is that Red Star would be the best team in MLS by a long shot, like I don't know if I buy that at this point. And like I don't know, with the blunders Borjan has made, and with how his team has performed in the last while, they're not even leading the Serbian league right now. It makes me question it. It makes me question that argument that he's just playing at a different level, so he's earned that number 1 spot. I think I would still start him for the first game, but I think he's on a short leash, and I could see Crépeau coming in.
Well, that's kind of like he's maybe the better way to put it is he's earned the start. He's earned a start as the number 1, and then I think as fans he shouldn't be free to criticism if he starts having some Borjan blunders. And to be fair, again, with credit, even those Borjan blunders he's had, they weren't the reason why. If we lost those games, like the Haiti game, his little cough up, that was not on him. I mean, sure, he made a bad pass, but I think that wasn't the reason why we lost that game. The reason why we lost that game is because the whole team collapsed. Even against French Guiana.
I'm glad you just say Godinho. Yeah.
He made the game 1-1 and we had that huge blunder, but. That didn't cost us the game. And in sports, to a certain level, you kind of just have to, mistakes are going to happen, and it's how you respond, right? So it's like, we let in, again, in the Bermuda game, he let in that really odd, his only shot on net, I think it was, and that he just sort of dropped it and the guy put it in. But in that Suriname game, when we were under pressure, he kept things calm. That first 30 minutes when it was like, this game really could be a 2-0 game for Suriname right now, even though he had a post, but he made some big saves, he put it away, and he has kept everything calm. So you hope that he carries it over, but absolutely, if his blunders cost us, I think as a fan base, and we'd rightly so be demanding for Crépeau to at least show us what he can do.
And just for the record, Borjan basically single-handedly won Red Star the Serbian Cup. I actually watched that game, and I think he stopped 2 or 3 penalties against Partizan in the finals. So, when he's good, he's really good. He's clearly a talented keeper, but I think he has a lot of downsides that could manifest themselves in these World Cup qualifying games. And I'm really happy that Crépeau sort of brought himself back into this discussion at the very least. A few months ago, Dane St. Clair was our hot new goalie, and people were saying he should have that number 2 spot, but that's not what we've seen. I wanted to move on to World Cup qualifiers, which you only have 15 minutes to do at this point. But yeah, we're less than a month away somehow, and we've got a pretty packed window. What is it? A game every 3 days?
Yeah, it's like it's 3 games within 10 days essentially. I think if each
Yeah,
for
that's
each window,
crazy.
which is insane. Which is
God,
so,
and they have to fly to Nashville in the middle of it. Holy
well,
shit.
that I think there's a lot of fans who are complaining about games just being in Toronto, but really, if you're going to be flying to Nashville, that's no time at all. I think it'd be interesting. Although they confirmed the October home games also in Toronto, where we're playing away in Mexico and Jamaica. Yeah, it's crazy to think we talked about it earlier about how much soccer for the women's team for the Olympics, for the men's team for the qualifiers, then the Gold Cup, how much Canadian soccer we've digested, and we have a guaranteed amount of was it 14 games they still have to play, no matter how well if they lose all 14 games, no matter what they have to play those games. So we have at least 14 more games to look forward to from now until March. If anything, this is going to help our our FIFA rankings. That we're going to play more games against better teams, win or lose or draw. We're going to help get our program up higher. Yeah, I hope we have a great squad rotation. That's all I hope. I hope we pick the starting 11 differently for every game.
For sure.
I'd see, not to get too high of ourselves here, but I think for those qualifiers in September, anything less than, 4 points might be a bit of a disaster. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to say
Yeah,
because I think
it puts you in a tricky situation.
El Salvador and Honduras are definitely beatable, and I would go into those games expecting to be the favorite at this point, just based on their performances. Even though they played very well in the Gold Cup, I still think that they weren't amazing. They didn't
Not
really,
as well as us.
not as well as that. They didn't show anything that was like, oh no, we really got to watch out for this. Like, no, this game we should be considered favorite, but we were also considered favorite against Haiti. So, I think we definitely should be able to win those games. But I just also wouldn't be surprised if we somehow get a 1-1 draw against Honduras, or like a 2-2 draw, or 0-0. Somehow just have to have nothing going that first game, and then now we have to go to Nashville, which America believes COVID doesn't exist anymore. So that stadium will be packed in Tennessee. It'll be absolutely packed. So I don't know. I don't want to assume a loss. I think it'd be a historical point, even if we got a draw down in Nashville. But that game is kind of the one where you go, okay, well, like let's see what happens that match. But El Salvador and Honduras, let's focus on 4 points would be okay, but I think we should expect six, and then be okay with four. It's hard to judge these games. CONCACAF is such a whirlwind. We're not sure what kind of refereeing we're going to get. We're not going to sure what kind of teams are going to show up, what kind of conditions we're going to have. Luckily, the first window we have 2 home games in Toronto, so at least the field will be good. Yeah, this is gonna. I'm really looking for. I actually forgot that I was on a monthly subscription with One Soccer, which I think is more expensive than if you buy the 1 year subscription. But at this point, I just know, okay, well, I'm gonna watch more games next month anyway, so I don't care. I'll set auto subscript for now, and then I'll deal with the cost later.
Just if you buy it for the year, there's probably going to be periods of time where there's no games going
Yeah,
on.
exactly. So I might as well
Yeah.
I'll do month to month.
Yeah. You mentioned Honduras in particular, and just to go on a little tangent about that, they have consistently been a very hard team to break down. They've shown that they can add up more than the sum of their parts. They didn't necessarily have the best showing at the Gold Cup. I think they lost 3-0 to Mexico, but then again, they didn't have their A team. They do draw a lot of players from the Honduran league, but yeah, they have a style. They know what they're doing. They're going to be really hard to break down, and that's what I'm looking forward to see what our plan is there. And I guess you mentioned the first 2 games in Toronto. In addition, there's almost certainly going to be a game in Vancouver at this point. Are you planning to attend that?
I might go attend a game in Toronto as well. To be honest, I think
Oh,
just based on because my contract's just a summer contract. I'm choosing probably to not work in September or October unless I get an offer somewhere else. But I'm okay just taking some time off because I've worked a lot this summer. I have a lot of family in Quebec and Ontario, so I think if I could loop in a trip for a game, a trip for family, I could do. And if any Canadians are watching right now, I checked the other day. Flights through Canada right now are they're the cheapest I've ever seen in my life right now. So if you're considering going to a game or just traveling in Canada right now safely, now is the time. It looks like to do it, and I think that's why I'm considering it because this is the cheapest I've ever seen a flight to Toronto or Montreal. I think I might just do it. And now again, we'll see what tickets are like. I feel like there's probably 8 to 10,000 more deserving fans closer to Ontario than me. But if the tickets become available, I'm going to seriously give it some consideration to go see games in Toronto. But like 100% guaranteed, I will be seeing if they have games in here in Vancouver, which is suspected to be January window, I guess, because of the conditions. And we'll use the turf to our advantage. I'll definitely be going to a game there as well.
Yeah, I hope I can too. I'm gonna be living in Toronto for the first time, so that's exciting. And yeah, I hope to be there. Um, so you were talking about having a different 11 in every game, about squad rotation. Some people are taking that to the extreme when it comes to the Nashville trip, when it comes to playing the U.S. there, saying we should bring maybe a B team, a skeleton squad. Um, what what's your view on that? Do you think we should be focusing on getting points out of the Honduras and El Salvador games and just hoping for the best in the U.S.?
I mean, so yeah, I remember John Herman was talking about in the Gold Cup, like it's about winning the tournament, not winning the game. And I think as much as they would love to have beat the U.S., they were like, you know, we want to look long term. So I think that's someone who says that is not wrong in that thought process. Is like, hey, let's get the 3 points where we can get them. That's what's going to get us to the World Cup, is getting the points we know we can get. But you can't plan to win and you can't plan to lose. So
Yeah.
if we win 5-0 against El Salvador, which hey, it's all within possible. I think El Salvador, as good as they've been at times, they're worse. They're overall
They're the worst team in this.
I think their ranking before they changed it, before COVID, was undeserved. I think them being a spot above us in CONCACAF was based on decades of past success. I think they're highly overrated, but they have that opportunity. In CONCACAF, I would not be surprised if they score 0-0 game. They give us nothing. We're peppering them. We just can't finish, and they somehow squeak out a really shitty stoppage time goal. Now all of a sudden, this game we thought we were going to get guaranteed 3 points. We've just dropped 3 points. And the whole plan was to go down to Nashville with a B team. Like, ridiculous. You can't do that. You have to, obviously, I think for the first game, dress your strongest team. But then those guys are professionals. They're going to be like, no, I can play a game in 3 nights. Like, Alphonso Davies is like, do you think he's going to not play that U.S. game? Like, he's not a B squad player. You think Jonathan David's, he's going to play the U.S. Like, these guys are professionals. I understand rotation, but there's going to be some holdover. They're going to be like, no, I'm absolutely playing against the U.S. in the U.S. to avenge that 4-1 loss we had in CONCACAF or what have you. So, I understand the thought process of a heavy rotation, but to suggest that we should go with the B squad and focus on Honduras and El Salvador, you're not wrong in thinking that, but at the same time, you are wrong.
I 100% agree. I think it's a little too galaxy brainy to me. Like as you said, you can't plan to win or lose. Nothing ever goes according to plan. There's going to be injuries. Throughout this window, or throughout these whole qualifiers, just by pure probability, there's going to be score lines that don't go our way, and we're going to have to deal with that. We're going to have to, spit in the face of adversity, and there's going to be times in these windows where it doesn't look like we're going to be getting that top 4 spot, and we're going to have to triumph anyway. And yeah, I can accept like a bit of rotation, like maybe an A- squad perhaps, but I think you have to go into every game giving your team a reasonable chance to win.
Yeah, and you start Cavallini over David in the U.S. or something like that. You give the start to a few of the A- B squad guys, but then you want to substitute in your guys. If you don't have to, great. If you go down the game plan and like, hey, we're up, we don't need to bring in David. We don't need to bring. That's a good position to be in. But let's. Plan for the worst, hope for the best situation. I mean, we're not managers, so we can't make the final call here. But I think, squad rotation is important, but let's not go out of line here and start Tisho Akindele again against the U.S.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to be seeing the return of Atiba and Scott Arfield in this window, and I was curious to see how you think they slot into our team.
Yeah, so I haven't been following the news as much as I probably should have with Arfield. He's agreed to come back, because the way it was reported before was that he didn't really want to play. It
sounds like John Herman thinks, it sounds like he thinks he'll be there.
Okay, I mean, I think Arfield's a great player. He obviously, they won. Rangers just won. I believe they're still competing in Europa qualifiers right now. So he's a great player. He plays on a great team in a great league. He always performs for us. But kind of looking back at that 2019 Haiti collapse, he was just kind of whiny and didn't really want to be there. And then same with the CONCACAF Nations League. From again what was reported, he was tired of playing French Guiana and Cuba and all that stuff, which I get as a professional, but it's just like you're looked at as a leader on this team. You're looked at as someone who can not only play extremely well, but you got to like set the example as well for young. You got to remember, Alfonso Davies is amazing. He's still 20 years old, and a lot of those guys are still like just early 20s around that stuff. So if he's back for sure and he's committed to play for World Cups, I'm all for it. Like let's do it. He's a great player. He's a great addition. He's not gonna make things worse for us. But also Eustachio has proved he's an amazing player. We've got other guys who weren't on the team when Arfield's around, like a different position, but like Scott Kennedy has proved himself as a starter as well. So maybe Arfield's gotten himself into the A- spot, but if he's back and he's proven that he wants to be back, great. I think that's amazing. The same with Hutchinson. So let's go.
That feeling when you're no longer the best Scot on the team.
Absolutely, and maybe that's true now, or maybe he might have. It was so strange when we were first qualifying in March and or had those games in March and June. It was all this like sort of reports that he didn't really want to be there, but he was also maybe injured or he was dealing with his family. So I don't want to judge too many conclusions, but it just didn't surprise me too much when there's reports of him being like, I don't really want to play those games. It's like, well, sure.
I definitely agree. I think Arfield his form with Rangers has been pretty poor as of late. He did not have a good game against Malmo in the first leg, and I think it's at the point where he's on the level of Osorio, Piet, maybe even a bit below K at this point.
Great serviceable player, and again, he could be a super sub. We're up by 1, or we need some energy or something. Bring him on in the 70th minute and go for that goal or try and defend that lead. I think he's still amazingly serviceable.
Atiba, I still think is on another level because he never stopped being fantastic with Besiktas, and I think like a pairing with Eustachio that has the ability to dominate, or at least to do very well against basically any midfield in CONCACAF. And I'm looking so forward to seeing those two play together. We got a bit of a glimpse of it against Bermuda, but that wasn't quality opposition. I'm so excited to see what they can do against the best of CONCACAF.
I am looking forward to these matches so much. I think the Olympics was such an amazing ride to go through with the women's team. It was crazy to see them win gold. I think we were all happy if they got bronze again. And now that we get no time, it's like playing rec league. You have no time. If you win the rec league summer championship, within 3 weeks you're back in the winter league playing again. So we have no time to soak up that gold medal win because we're going straight into the qualifiers next.
Well, we've got time. 30 seconds left. How
Yes.
many points are we going to get in this window? What are your predictions? What score predictions? What are they?
I'm gonna go score predictions. Oh goodness. 3-1 over El Salvador. Win for us. A 2-1 loss to the U.S. and a 2-1 win against Honduras. All fairly low-scoring games because I don't think that first window, even though we've played together a lot, I don't think they're going to generate tons of offense. Hoping we're proven wrong, but I think we'll get up 3-0 on El Salvador. They'll get a chippy one somewhere in the 80th minute and make a game out of it. It's 3-1 for us. Be a close game all throughout. I think it'll be very similar against the U.S. as it was for Mexico. 2-1 loss, unfortunately, and then we'll go equally and get a 2-1 win against Honduras.
James, thanks for coming on today.
You know what? Thank you for having me on my own show, Keiran. I really appreciate your time and interviewing me, and I look forward to the next time I can be a guest. Take care, my friend. I'll see you soon.
Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money, and we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.